essentially what I was constantly trying to do. So I had motivation. You can have motivation if you're in fear. Yeah. If I said you're going to die if you don't make $1 million in 3 months, you're going to be pretty motivated, right? It's pretty simple. Motivation is created from fear. So how do we have that pull and drive to go after something meaningful when instead of being driven by being not enough, we're actually feeling content? Because that's what contentment is. And that's what I experienced on my next chapter. Learned to meditate and feel whole in a moment. Build some of that unconditional love and let go of some of those conditional love conditions. But then the motivation completely left. And what I found myself doing for 5+ years after I shut down that business that was driven by fear is I would get contentment for a while, and then I'd be confused about how to move forward because I wasn't established in wholeness yet. And so I would try to do something that's success driven and go straight back into that fear consciousness again, and then be like, what the hell? I'm feeling dysregulated. I'm not enjoying the moment. And then I would let it go and go back into wholeness and contentment without the motivation. And then I'd just swing back into motivation from fear, try to start a new project, wouldn't feel sustainable, didn't feel aligned or right. And then I would just drop it again. And I kept pendulating between motivation, but discontentment, and then feeling whole with contentment. Motivation, discontentment, feeling whole, contentment. And I didn't understand how to build motivation while feeling full. And that's essentially what I'm going to talk about how to do in this podcast. We're getting there. We're getting there. I like to be thorough and I like things to actually land. So I'm going to continue to do that. So the feeling of contentment is a very powerful and rare experience in this modern world. Just social media and emotionally eating, Netflix, a lot of cigarettes, drinking, a lot of these modern short-term gratification habits, they're all symptoms of head hypnosis. They're all ways to sedate, to plug our free will and keep us in this stress cycle so that the head, the fear consciousness, can stay in control, because we don't have that spaciousness to see what's actually happening. As soon as we get spaciousness and awareness, we've got free will. We might choose something different, but our head wants to stay in the driver's seat and decide the way that we're going to go. And so all of this whole society that's just riddled with short-term gratification, addiction, and essentially stress, that's all promoting more fear. And so it's very rare for someone to actually get to a place where they can see what's happening and liberate themselves through that to feel content. That's a rare phenomenon. And that's what I was able to experience. But I felt so different and so disintegrated with society and my goals and my dreams and service and being relevant. It was like, okay, the whole world's powered by motivation and addiction and fear and stress. I'm now feeling full and I don't feel like I belong anymore. And I'm not sure how to do both. How do I do this? But I just want to honor and celebrate if you felt a sense of contentment before. That's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing because it takes a lot of courage to let go and surrender. There's this beautiful quote that says, flow happens at the junction point between discipline and surrender. And that discipline part, it's usually motivated by fear with most people in society. As I've said, that surrender piece, meditation, letting go, being okay to accept yourself for where you are, my gosh, is that a courageous thing to do? Courage means heart. In Latin, it literally means heart. Courage comes from the Latin root word core, and core means heart. So courage means being in the heart. To be courageous is to be in the heart. It is convenient and comfortable to stay in the head, to continue to sit in a monotonous grind. If you've got an addiction to alcohol and a dependency on that, yeah, it's comfortable to keep using that dependency strategy. It's not really comfortable because you feel stressed and dysregulated, but it's familiar, and it's far more uncomfortable to ditch the short-term gratification, ditch that motivation, fear-driven loop, which I did by shutting down my business, and which a lot of people do by saying, I'm willing to face the pain and learn to love myself without all that dependency. That's contentment. That's acceptance. That's finding wholeness. And that is heart. It takes courage. It is heart. It is fulfillment. But it's not integrated as an initial step. So let's just leave those two pieces there. We have motivation from fear and we have contentment from fullness, but we haven't found how to do both. Let's bring in the strategy now. The answer is inspiration. Inspiration is feeling the pull to action, the call to action, but not from a place of fear. Inspiration is feeling the pull to action from a place of love, from a place of fullness and wholeness. And that is the answer. That is the answer. And I'm going to give you a potent strategy to implement this. It's something that I created. That's a bit arrogant. It was given to me from God. Thank you, God. Thank you so much. But this whole perspective of head and heart was something that organically came to me through this random set of breadcrumbs, and an activity that I do most days called a heart map. A heart map. And that is understanding that we have a head consciousness that we can be in. When we're in head consciousness, we're feeling afraid, we're feeling activated, even if it's a thin film of stress. You might be feeling like, yeah, everything's going really well, but your intellect is dictating your decision making and keeping you comfortable, which is origin is in fear. So when we're in fear consciousness, we're not fulfilled and we're in our head. So we can be in that fear consciousness, that survival brain, the amygdala, or we can be in the heart consciousness, which is liberation, freedom, fulfillment, which is actually the prefrontal cortex. That's where our mind opens up. We have critical thinking, imagination, intuition. The prefrontal cortex lights up when those faculties of our brain are in use. And so that's what it looks like to be in the heart from a brain perspective. So we can be in fear consciousness or we can be in fulfillment consciousness. Now, I'm here to suggest that you can feel a pull to action, not the same as motivation, because I'm just labeling motivation as fear consciousness. So you can emulate a pull towards action by being in the heart, and that's called inspiration.